two radicals. Whenever I'm multiplying two radicals with same index, the index is the number that goes here, and I can rewrite it as one radical with the same index, and then multiply the radicands. And these two are the radicands, A and B, the number that goes under the radical. So we use this property in this video, and there are some steps to follow to simplify radicals. The first step is to multiply the coefficients. Coefficients are the numbers outside of the radical. And the second step is to rewrite the radicals with the same index as one radical, technically using this property, and then we can simplify. So when I come back, we're going to do more examples. Alright, here's our two examples. The first one is cube root of 3 times cube root of 9. So the coefficients here are 1. We don't write them, but so I'm going to multiply the coefficients. 1 times 1 is just 1, so I don't have to write anything. And then rewrite the radicals as one radical. So I write the radical with the index, cube root, and 9 times 3, and 9 times 3 is 27, and 27 is a perfect cube, so it's 3. So this is it for the first one, and then we want to simplify the second one. So 3 rad 2 times 4 rad 18. So here the coefficients are not 1, the coefficients are 3 and 4, so I have to first multiply the coefficients. 3 times 4 is 12, so 12, and then I'm going to rewrite these two radicals as one radical, so that this is square root of 2 times 18 is 36, so I'm going to write 36 here, and 36 is a cube. Now I'm going to simplify. This is the third step. I'm going to simplify. 36 is a perfect square, so I write it as 6, so this is 12 times 6. Whatever leaves the radical gets multiplied by whatever is already waiting outside of the radical. So 12 times 6 is 72, and 72 is the answer for the second one. Alright, so here's the next example. 4 cube root of 18 times 2 cube root of 3. So first, I multiply the coefficients. 4 and 2 are the coefficients. 4 times 2 is 8. And I'm going to rewrite the radicals. So this is cube root of 18 times 3. 18 times 3 is 54. And right now, I have to simplify. So to simplify this cube root, I can rewrite 54 as 27 and 2. So this is 8 times cube root of 27 and 2. And then I can break down this radical. So this is 8 times cube root of 27 times cube root of 2. And then cube root of 27. 27 is a perfect cube, and it's 3. So this is 8 times 3 times cube root of 2, and 8 times 3 is 24. So 24 cube root of 2 is the simplified answer. Alright, so this example is for you guys to try, so go ahead and pause the video, try to do this one, we'll go over it together. Alright. 5 rad 2 times 2 rad 27. So first of all, we're gonna multiply the coefficients. 5 times 2 is 10, and rewrite the radicals as one radical. 2 times 27 is 54, and then we have to simplify this. So how do we simplify this? The largest perfect square that is in 54 is 9. because I can rewrite 54 as 9 times 6. So let's do that. 9 times 6, and then I'm going to break down that radical into two separate radicals. So this is equal to 10 times rad 9 times rad 6, and 9 is a perfect square and is 3, so 10 times 3 times rad 6. Whatever leaves the radical gets multiplied by whatever is already outside the radical. 10 times 3 is 30, so it's 30 rad 6. This is the final answer. Alright, here I have an example that has variables in it. 3 rad 14x to the 5th times rad 2x to the 9th. So first of all, I have to multiply the coefficients. The coefficient of this one is 3, the coefficient of this one is 1. We don't write that. So 3 times 1 is just 3. And then I'm going to rewrite these radicals as one radical. 14 times 2 is 28. And I have x to the 5th times x to the 9th gives me x to 14 because we add the exponents. And right now we have to simplify. So for 28, I can rewrite that as this is a square root, so I have to find the perfect square in 28, and the perfect square in 28 is 4. So when I divide 28 by 4, I get 7. I can write it as 4 times 7. So I keep the 3. This is 4 times 7 times x to 14. And then I can break down that radical, that big radical, to 3 times rad 4 times rad 7 times rad x to 14. Right, so here I keep the 3, and 4 is a perfect square, and it's 2, so 3 times 2. This rad 7 I can simplify it, so I just keep it the way it is. And this rad x to 14, it's a square root. Because it's a square root, for every 2 x's, 1 pops out of the radical. So for 14 x's, 7 x's leave the radical. So I have x to 7. And simplify it more. 3 times 2 is 6. 6x to 7 times rad 7. And that is the final answer. Alright guys, here's another example for you to try. So go ahead and pause the video. We'll go over it together. Okay. I have 10 cube root of 2x to the 7th times 12 cube root of 4x to the second x squared times negative cube root of 2x squared. So first I'm going to multiply out all of the coefficients. 10 times 12 gives me 120, and the coefficient of this one is negative 1, so 120 times negative is negative 120. So negative 120, and then cube root. Inside the cube roots, I have 2, 4, and then another 2. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. 8 times 2 gives me 16. So I have 16 here. And then x to the 7th, x squared, and x squared. I'm going to add the exponents. 7 plus 2 plus 2. So that's x to 11. And then we have to simplify. So the largest perfect cube in 16 is 8. So I can rewrite 16 as 8 times 2. Negative 120 times cube root of 8 times 2. And for x to 11, I can write it as x to 9 and x squared. Okay, and then I can break down that big radical. Cube root of 8 2 times cube root, or actually we can just okay, so this big radical, I rewrite it as cube root of 8 times cube root of x to the 9th and times cube root of 2x squared. Alright, so here, 8, cube root of 8, 8 is a perfect cube, so 2 leaves out the radical, and 2 times 120 gives me 240, and it's a negative, so negative 240, and cube, okay, so this is a cube root, and that means that for every 3 x's, 1 leaves the radical. So for 9 x's, 3 leaves the radical. So x to the 9, cube root of x to the 9 gives me x cubed. And I can't simplify this, so I just keep it as it is. Cube root of 2x squared. So the final answer is negative 240 x cubed times cube root of 2x to the x squared. Okay, now let's look at multiplying some radicals that have more than one term. Here I have rad 15 times this binomial rad 15 minus, this should be rad 5. So rad 5 times this binomial rad 15 minus rad 8. So this rad 5, this is like distribution. So it really doesn't matter if it's a radical, it's just like normal numbers. I have to distribute this to this 15 and also this 8, rad 8. So rad 15 times rad 5 would give me rad 75, 5 times 15, and minus rad 5 times rad 8 gives me 40. So I'm going to have to simplify them right now. Rad 15 is a square root, so I have to look for the perfect squares. The perfect square in 75 is 25, so if I divide it by 25, I get 3. So I can rewrite 75 as 25 times 3 and minus 40. The perfect square in 40 is 4, so I can write it as 4 times 10. And then I can break down these radicals. So the first one, I can write it as 25 times rad 3 minus the second one, rad 4 times rad 10. This 25 gives me 5, so I have 5 rad 3. And this 4 gives me 2 and minus 2 rad 10. So this is the final answer. 5 rad 3 minus 2 rad 10. Alright, so here I have an example for you guys to try. Go ahead and pause the video, we'll go over it together. Alright, I have 5 rad 5 times rad 18 plus 2 rad 8. So we distribute this 5 rad 5 to both of these terms. We have to first multiply the coefficients. The coefficient of this one is just 1. So 5 times 1 gives me just 1. And 5 times 18 gives me 90, so this is 5 rad 90 plus 5 times 2 gives me 10, and then this 5 times 8 gives me 40. Now I have to simplify. 90, I can write it as, the perfect square in 90 is 9, so I can write it as 9 times 10. 9 times 10. And same thing for 40. The perfect square in 40 is 4, so I can write it as 4 times 10. And then I can break down these radicals. So 5 times rad 9 times rad 10 plus 10 times rad 4 times rad 10. And here 3 leaves the radical. Rad 9 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 rad 10 plus 4, for rad 4, 2 leaves the radical. 2 times 10 10 is 20. So 20 rat 10. And then notice that we have like terms here. We're going to add them. I have 15 of something plus 20 of that something. So that gives me 15 plus 20, 35 of that something. So 35 rat